I have a question, Todd.
Sure, Abby.
In the Judge Your Neighbour worksheet, when I get to question 3, in what advice you would offer the person, I hit a wall because the language that's given is he or she shouldn't or should. And in my mind, maybe I've trained myself out of that word, should and shouldn't, but I can't come up with what I think it should or shouldn't be because it should or shouldn't be anything. They're doing what they're doing. If I don't like it, it doesn't matter. It just means they're behaving in a way that's brushed up against me. But in my mind, I can't come up with a should or a shouldn't because I don't use that language in my everyday life or in any other area, like you should do that or you shouldn't do that. Maybe I just haven't got in touch with that part of me that can speak like that, but I find that a difficult question to answer. And I wonder if there's another way I could think about it.
Yeah, great question. Yeah. A lot of us have this idea should is a bad word, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
don't should and don't use that word. And so as soon as we hear that word, we immediately think, oh no, I shouldn't say shouldn't. So so I don't. And what am I going to do for question 3? Because the prompt is they should or they shouldn't. So the key for me is getting in touch with the part of me that's stuck. There's a part of me that is believing that they are wrong. Otherwise, I wouldn't be feeling stress in this
Mm.
situation. There's a part of me that's arguing with the way things are. And so that part of me actually does think that they should do something differently. I wouldn't want to admit that to myself because I don't want to use the word should, but that part in me exists. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel the stress that I do. So, writing a or filling in a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet is a meditation, just like answering the 4 questions and turnarounds. And this meditation of filling in the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet is about getting in touch with that part that's like kind of buried down in there that we never give the time of day to, and saying, hey, you, what do you think? And it's like allowing the 2-year-old, like the little crying baby, to finally say, this is what I think, and it comes out usually with a lot of emotion and a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts and I wants and I needs and all of that. And it's not normal because we're so good at keeping that hidden down and under control so that we can function in the world, right? So that's good. It's good that we can keep it controlled. But when you're doing the work, this is the opportunity when you can actually allow it to come out. You can actually express it and give it a chance to be heard and and kind of scream out onto paper, uncensored. And if you allow that, what's happened there is your emotions. You're now in touch with your emotions. Like you're what you're writing is connected to you and it's connected to that feeling of stress that you had when you got triggered. So now when you do the work on that statement that's connected to your emotions, it's going to start changing things. And when you start seeing things differently, the emotions, it's so connected to you. It's not intellectual, it's something real. So don't skip this step or kind of jump over it, uh, of like getting in touch with what's really bothering you and kind of almost allowing yourself to be that childish part that really thinks that. It's almost like you
I
go into a
think,
different
yeah,
mode. Yeah.
no, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah. And maybe that's all part of the issue, but I think the way that could I could definitely get in touch with I want instead of he should or shouldn't or she should or shouldn't. I can feel that there's a greater potential to open up to that question if I can start it with I want. So the way I want things to be different. So that clarifies things a little.
Yeah, you
You
can
think?
use some flexibility there. If
Mm,
I want works better for you, then why
mm,
not try that? Another thing you can do is just skip question 3, which is the should. You're just not feeling open to using that, and just put everything on the question 2, which is I want, and question
Oh, yeah.
4, which is I need, and just do it that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
And then it's also helpful to look at question 3 a little more. Like, what is it actually asking? Like, they should. It's saying, what advice could you give them? So this is where the should may be very subtle. It may not be a bad kind of should, but it's like helpful advice. What would help them to give you what you want? It's still about me. But what would help you? What would help them to kind of do that? They should probably see some things. They should become aware of some things they weren't aware of. They should, ask some questions maybe. They should look at this or that. And sometimes the practical steps of should and shouldn't don't feel as kind of negative to this mind, and you can play with that, because line 2 is where the real tantrum comes out. I want them
Mm,
to be different. Line 3 is you've gotten that off your chest. Now let's look at what are the subtler pieces, what are the subtler arguments with reality that I'm doing. Like, oh, I think they should really, you know, put themselves in my shoes. They should um, imagine what it's like to carry this burden, and then they should be sensitive to that when they're talking to me. Like that kind of should doesn't feel like with the same energy that you were originally, I think, talking about.
mm. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
That's
welcome.
helpful.
Great. So, we get into all the details of the subtleties of filling in a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet in the Work 101, and some of you have taken that course, but there's a lot of options for how to look at those questions that kind of meet you where you are. We're not trying to just force ourselves into filling out a worksheet for some external reason. It has to fit with us. So you can kind of massage it and find your way to it. But in my experience, these shoulds can be very interesting questions. A lot of really detailed, practical, almost like recipe type advices can come out. And then when I turn those around, those become really practical advices for myself. And that's the beauty of it.